Hey, everybody. Today, for you, podcast number 023. Today's podcast is titled Game of Inches. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. This podcast is titled Game of Inches, and this is the Limitless Life Network podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Lombardi with the Limitless Life Network, and we're here to flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from living the life that you deserve, reaching your goals, and just having a great life. So, this podcast is really all about just figuring out how to get rid of limitations and live your life with more freedom, with a healthier mind, body, and spirit. So, I just really want to help you to tap into all these resources to get to the best version of yourself and to get the most out of your life. So, today we've got a cool story. I actually came from a blog that I wrote. Probably 2017, 2016, somewhere in that era. And the title is Game of Inches. Wrote it back then after my oldest boy Nate was playing high school football, and they won a really close game against their arch rivals, which is kind of funny now when you think about it. But the game came down to the very end, where the game was really close, and the other team drove down the field. They basically had a fourth and goal from the 1 yard line. And this, if they score, they win the game because there's not going to be enough time on the clock. There's only going to be time for like two more plays. So the game is raining, it's pouring, and it's just a miserable, footing on the field or whatever. The quarterback receives the snap. They try to run the quarterback sneak, and he fumbles the snap, and they don't get it. And so, my son's team wins the game. And it was just kind of an unfortunate thing because in any game, there's a winner and there's a loser. It's a fortunate thing for the team that wins, but not fortunate for the team that loses. And so it's a game of inches. Yeah, it comes down to that one play, but there's so many other things that went into that game. And this past weekend, there was a lot of NFL football on. There was actually two games, and there were championships games for each division. And one of those games kind of had a very pivotal play in the game. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. Um, Kansas City didn't have a lot of time left on the clock, and they're driving down the field. And if they kick a field goal, they're going to win the game. And if not, then the game's going to go into overtime. Anyway, they're not within field goal range. They need a big play. They need to get a good 15 yards to get within range. So their quarterback scrambles, runs out of bounds, gets closer, much closer. But as he goes out of bounds, one of the players on Cincinnati's team hits him out of bounds. He was clearly out. It was just a play where I'm sure the man regrets it terribly because the penalty gets thrown and it's 15 yards. And then next play, Kansas City kicks the field goal, wins the game. So it was a game of inches. It really came down to just that one single play. But before that, the Bengals actually had a chance to win the game. They had a chance to get within field goal range themselves, and their quarterback scrambled, and he threw a great pass on a third down play that they needed to keep the drive going, and the receiver was open. But somebody jumped up and got a finger on the ball. And the ball still made it to the receiver, but it threw the timing off of the pass, and the receiver dropped the pass. If that guy doesn't jump up and just tip that ball a little bit, that's probably going to be caught for a first down, and potentially the other team, the Cincinnati Bengals, could have been going to the Super Bowl. So that game could have gone either way, and both teams were equally deserving. And it's a shame that one has to sit home, but that's the way it goes in sports. And in life, not everything is fair either. So From the old story that I told you back in 2016 or 17 with my son's football team and all those young men, uh, what they experienced, and the same thing as these grown men today or this past week of probably feeling the highs and lows of those emotions. I think there's some really key points that we can all draw from that. So, the first point I'm going to bring out is that it kind of all comes down to this. Point number one, the fundamentals. Before every game in any sporting event, they begin by warming up by practicing their fundamentals. In football, it's how to run, how to catch, how to throw, how to kick, right? All the simple elements of the game. In baseball, it's how to throw, how to catch, how to hit, right? They warm up by practicing those things, the basics of the game. They don't start off by practicing the most difficult plays that they possibly can do. They practice the fundamentals. Why? We do that because our nervous system is programmed to work that way, right? The more we do something, the more repetition that we repeat something, the more likely in any circumstance we're going to do that as well. It's going to be easier and quicker and faster for our brain and our nervous system and our body to respond to what it needs to do and to do it correctly. Um, a few years ago, yeah, maybe a decade ago, almost a decade ago, I started doing learning how to lift weights, Olympic lifting, which is like snatching and clean and jerk and all that kind of stuff. So if you ever watch the Olympics and the weightlifters and how they do those movements, it looks like they're just picking up heavy stuff and throwing it over their head. Well, there's a very very specific technique to doing that, and it's very precise. And the precision of it really is how you're going to translate all your power and strength into moving a bar in a vertical direction. And there's a really a real art to it. And my trainer that was teaching me Olympic lifting started me off using a PVC pipe, and the point was he was breaking down the full motion or the full mobility into little sections. And we would practice these little sections in pieces to get my body used to moving in that direction. And over time, it got easier and easier to get the rhythm of that down. And then we'd piece those together until I was eventually doing the entire movement correctly. And then he started giving me a bar to use. And so we added a little bit of weight. So you start off really light and you're just trying to create a good habit and program your nervous system to do it a certain way. And some of the best weight lifters, one of the things that they do is they will not put on their heaviest weights all the time. They'll actually go really light and they'll do a lot of repetitions of that really, really light weight in order to just grease the groove. And that's what I think about with fundamentals. So in our own life, we have fundamentals, and so many people are looking at like these complicated or even biohacking things to fix their health. Like the big thing now is like ice plunging, right? Like submerging your body in cold water. And yes, there are a lot of biological value to getting your body acclimated and adapting to a cold water plunge. If you do it on a regular basis, there's great health benefits to that. But if your diet is out of order, if you're not sleeping good every night, if you're not if you're not exercising at all, and that's the only thing you're doing is just jumping in cold water, you're missing some of the fundamentals, right? So it always comes back to the fundamentals, and that brings us to point number two, and that is the point of the three little pigs, and that is that story of the big bad wolf and the three little pigs, right? We all know the story. He's going to huff and puff and blow their house down, right? So we have one house that's built out of straw. We have another house built out of sticks, and then the third house is built out of brick. And which one stands the test of the force of the wind from the big bad wolf is obviously the house made out of bricks. And that is really point number two, and that is what is your foundation made of? So a really good foundation is how you build your life, right? So what is the foundation? What's the cornerstone of your life? For me, it begins with spirituality. In other words, it's my relationship with God. It's my relationship with Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that's my foundation. That's my rock that everything really starts from, because it gets you in a place of peace, and a place of joy, a place of love, a place of compassion, right? And all these different what they call the fruits of the spirit, which is the opposite of things like anger and greed and lust and envy, which are not. So if you can begin with that type of a foundation, then anything is possible, right? And that's what I just love about having a solid foundation. And then it brings us to point number three, and this is something that I think about quite often, and it's I wrote down it's the law of addition and subtraction. But as the more I started thinking about this, it wasn't just about the law of adding and subtracting. It had a lot more to do with creating your life and looking at your life like your investment portfolio. And you want to add in these quality investments. In other words, quality assets that are going to grow and mature over time. And that's like the things that we do in our life, the things that we add into our life that are of good quality, that have the ability to flourish and grow, and that over time they pay dividends. Yes. And easily, we can use the example of diet and exercise. Everybody knows diet and exercise is great for them, but if we look at it like we're adding something to our life, are building our life, but then there's also relationships. Do relationships, are they adding to your life, or are they detracting from your life? Are they subtracting from your life? Um, family relationships, social settings, your career. Is your career something that you love and enjoy, or is it something you dread and it brings you tons of grief and stress? And if you're in a career that's like that, that absolutely is wrecking your life, then I give you permission to find a new career. But if you have a career that you absolutely love, and it brings you joy, and you look forward to it, then that's the career for you. And it is an investment. It's a part of your life. Um, the other part of this, though, is this idea of omitting and ignoring things. So if I have an investment portfolio, like think of it in the finance world, but I don't know diddly about what I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So if I never learn anything about real estate investing, there's a lost opportunity. There's a lost possibility that I could create more, wealth, if I'm looking at creating wealth in that situation. So same thing with health. If you don't know much about something, then there's nothing against the law that says you can't learn about it. There's nothing against the law that says that you can't go figure this out, or talk to somebody to help you learn it, right? Because when we ignore something and omit something, it literally is like subtracting as well. Because if you're missing something that is actually kind of dangerous for your own life, or it has the potential to harm your uh, your well-being or your family or whatever it might be, that you just don't know anything about, that ignorance or that lack of understanding is something that's actually hurting your investment portfolio when it comes to your health. I'm not just talking about finances. I'm talking about every aspect of what makes a life that you want to live. All right. So point number four is keep your cool. So this is I think back to my son's game and so forth, and kids can be rotten to other kids. Boy, my son's team, a lot of those kids just rubbed it in the face of the other kids, and I thought, man, someday they're going to grow up and they're going to have to do business with some of those other guys, and they're going to remember that, and it's not, you don't know what you don't know in those situations. When you're young, you do some foolish things for sure. Just don't do them as an adult. Keep your cool. Rocky times will happen. Nobody goes through life without having rocky times. Your boat's going to get rocked, and the best thing to do is stay in the boat. Don't bail out. You're gonna weather a storm a lot better in the boat than you will in the ocean. So keep your cool. Keep your wits about you. It's going to pass. And one of the things that I've recognized is that no hard time lasts forever. It seems like bad times, they don't last forever. Um, Everything seems to have a season, and really everything in this life is temporary anyway. So I think we get very possessive of things, and a lot of times that we just own our problems, we own our worries and our anxieties, and we don't seem to want to let them go. We seem to want to hang on to them like they're some valuable thing that we've earned. You can let them go, that's for sure. They're temporary anyway. They're not going to be with you forever. So keep your cool. Point number 5 is know who's really on your team. Somebody put a picture. Actually, it's a chiropractor that I know. She posted this photo of the man that committed that penalty on the Cincinnati Bengals sitting on the bench after the game, and he was just had his head down and he's crying. And the camera people, boy, they had video of this man just sobbing, and he had his helmet on. He's just sobbing, and he knew he made a mistake. He knew he cost his team, and it hurt him terribly. And after the game was over, everybody's off the field, everybody's in the locker room, and there's one teammate there consoling his teammate. And you really need to know who those people are in your life, because if you've got anybody like that, you hang on to them because they're gold. Those people are gold. Those people, they want you to succeed more than anybody, because they're not just looking at what's in it for them. They see your value. They see you as somebody that you're not going to do yourself or anybody else any good by wallowing in your misery. We all screw up. We all make mistakes. And when your time comes, and if you've got somebody in your corner that's pulling for you, hang on to them. Boy, they are gold. They are gold. They are a treasure. So that's what I have for you tonight. This was a pretty cool podcast. I didn't know what it was going to be about, and it just all kind of came together today. So I just want to thank you for listening. I really appreciate your support. I'm surprised sometimes at how many people are actually listening to my podcast. And honestly, it's just to really try to make your life a little bit better and share anything that I've gained through mine. So we can all build each other up. So that's all for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Tune in each and every week to stay connected, be inspired, and of course, keep moving toward your best life by stripping away your limitations. And we will see you next week.